Everybody can try their luck at startups. But the one thing I always tell people is that failure is the default outcome of any startup.
From building two African unicorns, Andela and Flutterwave, to now architecting entire digital cities, tonight we dive deep into the mind of Iyin Aboyeji.
I find it very annoying that when a startup fails, nobody ever wants to admit that they just weren't good enough. You may be going against a market you're not good enough to win.
We've seen founders who spend 2 years, 3 years trying to perfect the app, trying to perfect the technology. How can they start thinking about revenue from day one?
A business without customers, there's nothing there, just a beautiful ask for incorporation document. And that's where I work. Before the company is created, customer day. If I don't see customer, it will just be ideating.
How can founders sort of come out of that ceiling? When is that 10 to 100 period when you need to really take it to the next level?
The big thing is to be very
to do something like that in Abuja. It's not the same as doing it in Lagos. Do you know that? Do you know that? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of resources. And the biggest challenge is you have a vision in mind and you're not able to bring it back to life because of resources, because of the kind of access that you have. And that's the reason why you're currently experiencing this. You have been outside. I am super sorry, and on behalf of Founders Friday, across every city that we're in, we super apologize. I'm hoping that we can make the most of this 1 hour session that we have with Iyin, who came all the way from Abuja to be with us. And I know for sure that those who are really here to gain a lot of value and build companies that Abuja can be proud of, and build companies that Nigeria can be proud of, and Africa can be proud of, will gain a lot of insights. Are we together? Please. Please put your hands together really loud for those who have been talking at the back. Put your hands together for Iyin Aboyeji. Put your hands together. It's not easy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi, Iyin.
hello, how are you?
We're very happy to have you here.
Same here. I am so shocked. I think I came to, what was the last Founders Friday I came to?
It was an exclusive dinner.
Yeah, it was a dinner. Okay,
Yes.
so
That
that was just like not a typical Founders Friday. Okay, well, first of all, I'm super excited that this many founders in Abuja. I don't know, I think we'll struggle to get this number of people in Lagos on a Friday. So I have to say, you guys are punching. Maybe very soon, this year I'll move to Abuja. Because the amount of time I've come here this last couple of weeks now.
Oh my goodness. So I want us to start off with the very obvious.
Mm-hmm.
You've built Andela Flutterwave, Move, Eternal. What do you think? I mean, it's obvious that you have like a key to unlock this kind of growth, right? So I want us to start from there. What is that key, and how can we use that from a city like Abuja where you don't have access to a lot of resources?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing is, building is first of all about what you see, right? Because one thing that, even if you look at this building, the first person to really see this building was not the person that walked in here the day it was inaugurated. It was the person that put the plan together, right? That was the person that first imagined you could have a building like this in Abuja. It looks like this. This is exactly where the lights will be. Everything that is here, every detail was pre-planned. And it was a response to something. It wasn't just thought through randomly. right? Um, and I think that's the part that a lot of founders miss, which is that right before your eyes, every constraint that you face comes from somewhere. And there is an alternate future where that constraint is removed. The problem we have in this environment is that in Nigeria, we're not usually taught to think about these constraints as something we can control or something we can remove. So if you think about some of the businesses that we've been a part of, Andela or Flutterwave or Move, they first of all came from actually observing the problems that people see every day and just walk past. I remember the day that I first knew that I had to build something like Andela. I was coming home. I've told this story many times. I used to live in Eric Moore at that time with my uncle, and I was coming from CC Hub. It was a Saturday, and I drove. I was on a bus, on a downfall bus. So I went. We drove kind of to, if you know Lagos well, Ojo Elegba, and it was blocked. Everywhere was blocked before National Stadium. So I had to come down and walk past National Stadium. When I came down, I just asked somebody, like around the front of National Stadium, man, what happened that everywhere is so choked? Because there was a big crowd that was choked, and they were like, oh, there was an immigration interview, and there was a stampede. So when I go home, that was when I now started hearing the news that there was an immigration. I'm sure many of you must have heard about that situation. Immigration interview, people paid 1,000 naira to get a job, and many of them, or a number of them, maybe not many, never made it back home because they were trampled upon. And I was just thinking in my head that is so crazy that you could leave your house as a young Nigerian, not to go and play, not to go and party, not to go and, it's not that you went to go and do something bad, that something that your parents can beat you for. Sure, you understand? It's not like something, you didn't go somewhere where, somebody will your parents will say, what were you doing there? Do you understand? You went to look for a job. I guess you're being a responsible young person and you didn't make it back home. You didn't go to protest. Not that there's anything bad with protesting, but it's not like you went to protest or anything. You just went to look for a job and you actually did not make it back home. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so for me, it always starts from the problems you cannot unsee in the society around you. It sounds like a trivial thing. Like, why won't you focus on what VCs want to fund? And at the time, when we started Andela, there was no VC that was looking to fund job solutions. I mean, what we're doing, a lot of VCs turned us down because they were like, this thing cannot scale, right? And here we are today. So I think it starts with what problem are you ignoring every day because you believe that if you have money, you will solve it. And then understanding that even without resources, particularly because you don't have resources, you should you should think through how you might be able to solve that problem in spite, not because, but in spite of your constraints. And so how did we start? It's not like I had all the money in the world and I could just go. I mean, the co-founders actually came later. People don't know that part of the story. It was through ideating with them. Jeremy was my chairman first. And then I was like, for this thing to scale, you need to become the CEO. And that was when he now came and became the CEO. But I started, and what did I start doing? I would borrow space from people. Do you have any space? Somebody gave me their BQ. I used it. CC Hub will give me access to CC Hub every now and then. I used it. One time, we even used an office in Fadei, which is not a very nice part of Lagos. But we had to. We had need of the office in Fadei. We used it. And there was one time, we used a house, and the roof caved in on us. So you find your way, but what is important is that you're always keeping that vision of a world without the constraint you saw and what the world will look like when that constraint is removed.
Wow. Please put your hands together. So there was a point you made, right? I mean, it's one thing to have like an idea, you see the problem, you really want to solve it, but there's that tipping point, right? You said to Jeremy, like, I don't think I'll be able to make this scale, right? And you have to come over as a CEO. How do you know when is that 10 to 100 period when it's about to like when you need to really take it to the next level? It now feels like a ceiling. How can founders sort of come out of that ceiling?
So I think the big thing is to be very. I think one of the big disservices founders do to themselves is they believe they believe in Steve Jobs' reality distortion theory, right? First of all, I've never seen evidence that it works, right? That if you just close your eyes and believe you are Steve Jobs, you'll become Steve Jobs tomorrow. I've just never seen it. I do see a lot of founders operate as though by virtue of their thoughts and imagination, things happen. But I've just never seen it. And maybe I'm just not that kind of founder. I'm not that. I'm not that good. One thing that has helped me in my own career is I'm ridiculously honest with myself. Almost to the point of, I mean, I'm not an idealist at all, right? So I can look at a situation, cold hard facts. I know what it takes to get to the next level. I know that I don't have it. I know that there's somebody in my circle that may have it. And I know that it will be difficult to get that person interested, but with time, I can. And that what I get, and I have faith that it doesn't even matter whether or not I personally benefit. If the thing exists, I don't mind. If there's a saying I always say, which is you'll be very surprised at what you can achieve if you don't care who gets the credit. So a lot of the time, founders get stuck not because they don't know how to unstuck themselves, but they are thinking about what they would lose, right? If they are no longer the CEO, what they would lose. If they are no longer, I mean, the easiest, I always joke, not joke, but it's actually a fact. Anytime I get into a job, the first thing I do is I write my resignation letter. First thing I do before I start, anytime I get into like, I'm starting a company, before I do anything else, I just write, I put it always in my drafts. Because I know the day will come when, if I'm doing a good job, the job will no longer be, my services will no longer be required. And at that point, and every day, I'm thinking about who is the next person to hand over this baton of leadership to, right? Who is that person who can take this business to the next? And that's why this is the longest, Future Africa is the longest I've been at any business. And that's unfortunately because venture capital is a 10-year contract. So actually, the first thing they did when I started this job was that they were like, in the contract, they were like, yeah, we'll fund you, but your contract is 10 years and you can't resign for any reason. But even then, right, the Future Africa team has changed every 3 years, right? We always bring in new people that come in and constitute its management, right? Current management is 3 years old. I used to be managing partner. Now I'm no longer managing partner. I don't actually run the firm. I have a boss, right? She sits in Cape Town. So yeah, if you're a founder that thinks that the founder is a title. I mean, a CEO is a title. A CEO is a job, not a title. So you should always be asking yourself, if I was hiring for this job, would I actually hire myself? And if the answer is no, then find a way to find somebody who is excited enough, who you would actually hire to do that. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, if you're the kind of founder that can just tell yourself the truth, you will actually find that you do business a lot easier.
So with this point you raised, that there are two things. One side is the cost of bringing in someone.
Yeah.
and then the other side is the the founder element. You know the story of Starbucks and what happened before, and the founder came back again to revive Starbucks because it felt like they lost the essence of Starbucks, right? So how do you solve for these two cases if you're proposing that founders should be willing to let go and give someone else the reins?
So, I mean, vision and execution are generally two different things, right? You might have a view of how things should work, but then it's very different from being in a position to execute on that thing at that time. And you always have to be asking yourself, what does this startup need per time? So I'm sure the founder of Starbucks can say, oh, I now have to come back in and do that. But the truth is, at the time he was leaving, would Starbucks have survived if he was the CEO? Maybe not. And I mean, I even see this in my businesses where, yeah, there will be a time when you have to step back in because the business is reinventing itself. And if you're what the business needs at that time, then you come in. But it cannot be an emotional decision where you're like, oh, I'm not going to let this thing go because it's like you have a child, right? Your child turns 10, right? If you're my kind of parents, it's time to send the child to boarding school. Do you now say, oh, I'm not sure that those boarding school, you like, well, I'm sure he will not all learn all good things in boarding school, but on the balance, he needs to go to boarding school, right? And then when he comes back, we'll do the rest at home. So there's always that yin yang, that balance that founders have to have. The thing is, and I think this is the crucial question for most founders, is your mission, that is what you set out to do with this company, is it more important to you than your ego? Because if the reason you set up a company was to solve a problem, not to be a founder, it shouldn't actually matter to you whether you are the one that actually does it or not. Do you understand what I'm saying? And ironically, the way that tends to work is if you actually set up a business to solve a real problem, not because you thought, oh, by being a founder, I can be rich, or I can put CEO so I can be getting babes or guys, I don't know. if you didn't do it because of that, right, then your mindset would be that, okay, this thing that we want to do, what will advance it best is for us to have so and so person come and run it. I mean, I'll use Eternal as an example, right? Eternal is a very difficult business. And I had been building it. I was actually the originator of the idea. But I realized that, this requires a lot of government relations. And this requires a lot of understanding of real estate. And those two things I didn't necessarily have. So what did I do? I went and I recruited, and he's now the executive chairman, Lukman Edu, because he had a lot of government experience and he had a lot of understanding. And I was like, look, what would it take for you to come and run this thing? And he came, he's one of the large shareholders. People don't know actually that I actually don't own anything in Eternal. The fund actually owns Eternal, right? Because I was like, what does this thing need to be successful? It's not about coming up with an idea. Our mission, we want to create an environment where founders can actually grow without the constraints of regulatory compliance and etc. And I had to think deeply. Who needs to be around this table? What kind of support is needed? Who needs to lead these efforts? All those things are, in my opinion, they lead you to the answer of whether or not you're the right person or not. And if you're radically honest with yourself, you get to the right answer.
And what about the cost part?
Look, everything costs something. But I can tell you that, so at the end of the day, right, every cost has a benefit. And every benefit you obtain should have a commensurate cost. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. Now, I'll use my own self as an example. So that is like a live example, right? So at the time that Jeremy came in, right, our at the time, we're just like, okay, Jeremy, you can just invest and advise us, and let's see how it goes. But when we started to scale and we started to realize that, come on, this thing can be big. And Jeremy was like, I can't think about anything else. I was like, okay, why don't you come on board? Now, Jeremy had taken a company public in the US. Me, I was just a startup founder that was just doing small business in Nigeria. So the question of compensation was a difficult conversation. But so what ended up happening? So I said, okay, you know what? Let's even start again. I own 70% of the equity. My co-founders own 10, 10, 10. You know what? Jeremy, what would it take for you to come? But it's like, look, I'm very big. I won't take less than 50% and I'll bring money. I was like, no problem. I went to my other guys. I was like, you know what? You guys keep your equity, right? So we share it. We're going to be the same. But all of you, I need all of you to come in and work your asses off on this business. So all of us took 10, 10, 10. So that was how we shared it. 50, 10, 10, 10, 10% for Christina on his side. And then I think there was like a 10% for investors. Our previous investors that came with us, because I brought my investors along with us for the ride. So I went from owning 70% of the business to only 10% overnight. That's the cost. Let's talk about the benefits. Okay. I didn't actually stay. Normally, you're supposed to invest 4 years, right? So I stayed maybe 2.5 years before I left to build Flutterwave. But do you know that? And by the way, it's not like we're getting paid great salaries, right? We're getting paid very small salaries. So, but the reality is that I think at the time, Fora, which was a company that I came from, that company was probably valued at, I think, no more than like $2 million or something. I don't even know. It was like very little. Andela, just the stake of Andela I did, which I did not take the whole thing, right, was, I think the last time I checked, and I've sold a lot, was roughly about 10, 20 million. So that my 2% became $10 million, right? Meanwhile, I would have been sitting as CEO of a, I don't know, I don't even know how to value the company because the thing was not paying me salary. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So, yeah, I gave up a lot, 70%. I mean, I lost 60% of my equity overnight. But the value of the business, the combined business that came together was way bigger. And I see in Nigeria, everybody wants to be the Baale of a village, right? Rather than coming together to build something much bigger. Yeah. And it's because I think people actually put a value on the title, right? They like care more about, I'm CEO than they do about actually building something that's actually valuable. And that's why most startups don't scale.
Please. Heavy stuff. Heavy stuff. Okay, so let's talk about co-founder relationships. I think you have a great experience with having to build with co-founders, right? There are some founders in this room that are either struggling to find co-founders or are having issues with their already existing co-founders and they have to think about breaking up, or they are considering whether they should actually take on co-founders.
Yeah.
So do you mind just talking on this?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first pieces of advice I got from when I started building startups from a guy, his name is Joe Lonsdale. He's very rich, very big US investor. And I had the pleasure of my co-founder at Booknetto, my very first company, used to work for him. And we went to this fancy dinner in MoMA with him one day, and he was just giving us advice, we want to build a startup. We asked him to invest. He was like, hell no. So it was beautiful dinner, fantastic. And then, he was now giving us startup advice. But the only thing I took away from that dinner that I held on to my whole life was this piece of advice. He said, look, most 10 million, like most $100 million companies are built by people who could have built, by 3 or 4 people who on their own, they could have put okay $10 million companies, but they come together and that's how they build a big, giant $1 billion company. So I never forgot that piece of advice. And that has been my approach to it. That has been the underlying reason why you would never see me build anything without co-founders. I don't do solo founding. I mean, I back them, but I don't do it. And it's not because I'm looking for emotional support. I can't do things on my own. No. But there are 3 things. I think the first thing is I know exactly what I'm good at. And that means that I'm not trying to be better at anything else. I can see a problem. I might not come up with the idea, but I can see a problem. I can understand how a solution can actually work, but I can understand the levers of how to scale that problem, that solution, to solve this problem that seems big and insurmountable. And then most importantly, I know how to tell the story that brings it all together. And that's my job. If you come and tell me, Iyin, I want you to code, I tried by coding because I thought AI would give me superpowers. I can't show you what I built. So I've agreed with AI that no, this is not where we're working together. So what I know my core strength is that I can sell and I can storytell. So if I'm in a team and somebody else can do it just as well as I am, I'll ask you, why do you need me? You can go and work with this guy. But now, a successful startup cannot just be a story, except you're a scammer. Do you understand? Yeah, you actually have to build real products. And that is where I look for co-founders that complement, not just complement me, but, and this is the second thing, most of my co-founders, I'm not, whether am I proud or not proud, it doesn't matter. Most of my co-founders are not my best friends. It's not that I'm fighting with them or anything. It's just like, they're not necessarily, I actually think, how many of my co-founders were at my wedding? I don't think I actually had. Do you understand? Like, it's just not one of those things that like I think about. I think my co-founder at the time was at my wedding, but none of my prior co-founders were at my wedding. We have a great relationship. We meet up, we talk. We have, like, I can ask them for favors, they ask me for favors, but we're not best friends. We understand that we are together because we are building something. And once we are done, we are done. I go home, I have my friends, I have real life. You understand? I think the only person that breaks this rule is Nadaya, who's my co-founder. Yeah. But again, like, Nadaya does everything with me, so that's like a slightly different kettle of fish. But the reality is, like, people always look for co-founders that are their best friends, but no, actually, we're working together, we go home. Right? That's the thing. But when I'm picking co-founders, I do not compromise on the quality. I'm the sort of person that if I'm building something, right, or if somebody asks me to join something, if I don't think that person is in the top 1% of people who understand the problem I'm trying to solve, I don't do it. Like, I don't do PT co-founding or anything like that. I don't do that. It's like, some of the businesses that I've founded, just to give you a picture, right? Like, Jeremy took a company public in the US, not in Nigeria, took a company on the NASDAQ, right? That was the level, right? So I couldn't come down from that. You understand what I'm saying? Wenga actually sold a company to Access Bank, pay with capture, before we decided to work together. And Leke used to run basically Standard Bank's e-payment business. He was chairman of CB. There's nobody that knows payments like Leke does. They were both way older than me, but that was the standard, right? When we did move, Ladi and Jide, not just MIT grads, but they were running a very, very successful private equity company. They own JC Decor. So I'm not, like, I don't look for my friends Like, these are not people that I met in university or we're just friends, or no. It's like, I don't do it if it's not like the highest caliber of talent ever. And to be honest, one lesson I've learned, because after that, I think I tried the whole, you can bring up some young people type of thing. Bro, did not work. Did not work. If that's what we want to do, no problem, like come on board as an intern. But we're not doing that whole co-founders have to be the highest quality caliber of people, right? Because what I tell people is that, look, the co-founder is the only legitimate cheat code you have, because business is not fair. So if you don't find somebody that knows the cheat code of the business that you're doing, both of you will just be struggling. The blind will be leading the blind. So when we're building businesses, we don't pick our friends as co-founders. We pick people that demonstrate the highest level of competence and have the expertise to do what we're trying to do. Yeah. And if you can't attract that kind of co-founder, you have to ask yourself whether you're designed to win. Like, can you actually win? And if you can't, like, maybe don't do it. Maybe get a job at a startup where you can learn how to win. But there's this thing we do where we're like, oh, because we're struggling, one day we'll go make am. It's like, yeah, that's a nice song. But like in real life, if you go make am, we go know from starts. Like, trust me, life is not a Nollywood movie. You understand what I'm saying? Like, the rich don't always cry. It's like, so that's the second thing, right? The third thing is to be very clear about areas of responsibility and guiding principles. And always design the business in such a way that any party can walk away with honor and respect for the other party whenever it makes sense. So I think there's one thing, like, there's always, partnerships are only for a phase. There's no co-founding team that is forever. That's the first thing. So me, when I come on a team, I know my assignments. I understand that, look, this thing is nothing. My job is to make it look like something and get the resources to make it so. That's my job. The moment that job is done, I serve at the founder's pleasure. Right? Not that I'm not a founder, but at that point, I'm very objective with myself that, look, my value here is tenuous. Yeah. This guy can continue on his own. So if you look at the way I've built my career, what I do is, at that point, I just have a conversation and I'm like, you know what? Is it time for me to check out? Do you have anything else that you want me to do? If not, I can go and do another one. There's no need to make this thing long, right? I find that people tend to be very emotionally attached to something they're building as opposed to their function, which is like, I do this and I can always create this value whenever I need to. So I think that's usually what creates tension in co-founding arrangements. But I'll tell you, number one, if you recognize that you need to be very good yourself, and you need to know what you're very good at, and then you need other people that are just as good as you are to build a company with. Number one. Number two, you understand that you can't build a company with, you have to build a company with your mates, right? Like people that are very high quality, high caliber, that know what they're doing. And yes, they have to be values aligned, but never be like, oh, because this person shares my values or because I know them, right? Values aligned is baseline. But don't just say, oh, this person is not competent, but you know what? We go use startup help them. It doesn't work, right? You get what I'm saying? You can't mentor your peer. Yeah. They have to be your peer. They have to know what they're doing. You know what you're doing, and both of you get stuff done. Yeah. And then the third thing, like I was just saying, is like you really have to know that it's not a marriage. People always say, oh, co-founding is like marriage. It's not true. It's not a marriage. It's not divorce. You can leave. It's fine. But just agree, this is how living works. This is what I get. This is what you get. Like, we have a vesting agreement. these are my KPIs, these are your KPIs, and if you don't deliver, this is what happens. And I always tell people not to do equal partnerships based on my experience.
That's equal equity, right?
No. Except the people are very mature. But it doesn't mean, so here's how I do it, right? I sign equal equity in terms of sweat. That's okay. But who brings money makes the decision. So if everybody can bring equal money, no problem, right? Then have another metric. Okay, everybody's bringing, find that everybody can bring money, Abby, no problem. So who's going to get the first sale? Just have something that sharp moves you. Do you understand? But if there is no decision maker in the business, like there's no ultimate organ, it's just a problem. And that should be determined by what that person is bringing to the table.
Yeah. Please put your hands together for this valuable insight. All right, so let's go to governance, right? This is one of the most, we all talked about topic. I mean, the past 2 to 3 years, given the whole crash, right? Can we break that down a bit further? How would you advise a founder, who is building very early to go about governance, a founder that is already like at the scale phase to go about governance, right? So if you can touch on those two levels and to help them see how to be practically. Yeah.
Look, everybody talks about governance like it's a set of rules. And me, I like to look at it like, look, the way to think about governance is this, right? Ultimately, hopefully, you're the largest shareholder in your business. Okay? You have to have two sides to your brain. Okay? The part that's a shareholder and the part that is the operator. You see, that part that is a shareholder, just because the money in the business did not come from your pockets, right, does not mean that you are not putting yourself in a position where you will ultimately lose out if you don't build something good. And I think that's the problem we often have when we have these conversations about governance. Founders don't realize that ultimately, for us as VCs, the money is there for you to lose. But the problem is that you're never going to be rich doing that. It's a one-trick pony game. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, if you come to me now, you say, oh, E, you bobo me well enough, I give you 100K. Well, guess what? I have another, based on my fund, I can invest up to 2 million. But typically, I will only first give you 100K. If you end up taking that 100K, going to Canada, it's okay. It's just 100K. I will even answer, I just keep quiet. I say, oh, when do you want to shut down the company? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's not a problem at all for me, right? Because guess what? In my model, I'm going to form 50. And I'm only expecting 2 companies to pay off everybody. So everybody else is free money, it's fine. It's all good. But you know what? When you get to Canada, that money will finish. Right? You'll finish and you'll be seeing your mates, the same people that were building companies at the same time as you, that went through the fire, that actually built a real business, that was making money, that weren't just enjoying all over the place, right? You will not be their mates. Do you get? Yeah. There are some people that we started at the same time. You understand? But today is yes, sir. They are telling me it's not like I want it to be like that. But they actually got the opportunity and decided that, look, the best thing for me to do with this money is to go and pursue something. You get? Maybe, I'll buy a nice car. Maybe you understand? They made that decision. Nobody made that decision for them. And today, they're just not there. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. Like, nobody remembers their names even. So I always say governance is easy when you as a founder know what it is you want. And everybody can try their luck at startups. But the one thing I always tell people is that failure is the default outcome of any startup. Like, when you start, the one thing you need to know is that your failure is assured. No, I'm telling you, I mean, there's a room of how many? 400 founders, 500 founders. Most of you will fail. It doesn't matter what government does. It doesn't matter whether you come to Founders Friday every week. You understand? It's just like not everybody that goes to church will go to heaven. It's just like that. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's just life. You understand? You mostly will fail. Do you get what I'm saying? Now, you just make your failure even more assured when your approach is to play games around. So I don't believe in governance actually. I actually don't. You will never hear me in any of these conversations saying, "Oh, you should get a board of directors." Waste of time. Because if you're a founder that wants to chop money, you will chop money. It doesn't matter how many board meetings I have. You will just chop money with English. Do you understand what I'm saying? I would have just wasted my time chasing you. But if you really want to build something, what should preoccupy your mind is that, okay, how do we actually build a real business? And sometimes when I talk to founders look at funding as a reward. And I just laugh. I talk to founders, I'm like, because what we do, right? We get actually, when we fund companies, right? We're like, look, we really, really want you to succeed. I'm literally going to come on board, almost like making the institution your co-founder. Let's actually sit down and talk about what you need. So it's not just like, we're not just trying to have a valuation conversation. We're like, what exactly do you need? You need this, you need that, you need this, you need that. And then sometimes I see some founders, they'll just come to us, they wouldn't write the real things they need though. They'll just come and put 5K salary, 10K salary. I'm like, okay, fine. Like, it's okay. You want a 5K salary or a 10K salary, that is completely fine. Okay? But when we calculate the numbers, like where is the revenue going to come? Because the salary must be paid for, it's not free money. You understand? So when we say, okay, balance the scale, where is the money going to come from? Let's see your projections. Let's question it. Let's poke. Quickly, you can see that the salary is not salarying. The mass is not massing. The salary scale versus the business that they are building, it doesn't match. So I say, you see yourself, right? Me, I would rather wait for the person that wants to build this business than give you money to go and waste. But I know that some founders take that feedback and they're like, oh, I actually have to now think carefully about how I make sure I build a real business. That means that, actually, and by the way, this whole salary from day one is actually a new phenomenon. When I was building Andela, there was no salary on day one. Flutterwave, we didn't have salary for 1 year. So this salary, I get salary today. Because ultimately, if you're a shareholder, what are you doing with salary? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, that's the easiest place to cut. But when we see businesses come to us and they're very particular, oh, I must earn my salary, I must do this, I just look at them and I'm just like, this is why most times we just can't work, right? Because by the time you balance out where the revenue needs to come from and what they want to spend, it doesn't balance. So it's not a business. You can't fund it. It's a grant. And we don't do grants. You understand? So I'm like, okay, go and meet the people that do grants. They will give you grants. Me, I do business. So that means that if you are spending X, there must be X plus Y. And Y is my own. And I don't play with my Y. So a lot of governance is easy when you want to do the right thing. Then the rest of it is just process. It's just, okay, you need to do it like this, you need to do it like this. Because even the board members, right? When I was doing Flutterwave, I had Tunde Lemon, Dr. Tunde Lemon as my board chairman. It was not because I didn't put him there because I was looking for a policeman. I needed somebody that CBN would be afraid of when I go. I didn't need, do you understand what I'm saying? So if it's like, oh, I want to put a board together, you understand? Because I want to, because I want to stop governance. You're not going to put very good board members in place. Because does he have time? Baba doesn't have time to be chasing you now, to be asking you, where's this money, where's that money? Does he have time? So if you are going to actually leverage your board properly, it cannot be for what people call governance, right? It's not because I want somebody that is going to, it's because they are supposed to give me advice. Oh, do things like this. And he actually brought so much great advice, great goodwill, business, and even opportunities, ways of getting around certain regulatory barriers. I remember when one of the things that we did that really set us up for success was we're one of the first people to do this microfinance thing everybody's doing. And how were we able to do it? It was just like, look, my friends have come to me and said, we should do a microfinance bank. I can see some of the products in your roadmap are going to be very difficult to do with just a payment license because the regulator will not be happy. You want to keep deposits, you want to do this, you want to do that. You know what? He even said, I'll pay for the microfinance bank license, right? Just take the equity. Don't worry. You're a owner in the microfinance bank. Then later, we paid for the equity. That was it. That was how we got the microfinance bank license. We didn't go and work for it. IMTO license. I don't remember who was. One of our investors came to us and was like, there's this opportunity. They're going to start giving out these new licenses. I want to get one, but I don't know what to do with it. And that was how we got our IMTO license.
Wow.
So if you are serious about doing your business, all these other things, it's not to, I don't know if you get what I'm saying. It's not, startups are not a police and thief game. Go and do that in secondary school. That's not what we do here. You get what I'm saying? If you want to build a real business, you build a real business. If you don't want to, and if you build a real business, money will follow. I'll tell you, apart from Flutterwave's first round, siege round, when we had to really, really go and raise money. I mean, I actually don't know. One of the things that surprises people is I actually don't know how to raise money. Right? I like this whole thing that people will go and write plenty of emails. I don't know. I have a list of people I've made money for. If I need money, I just call them. And they're always like someone like Idris now, you say, where should we put our first put it? I was like, where will we put the money?
Yes.
Like, where? I don't even need the document. Just tell us, send wire agreement, that's it. Because that's the kind of relationship I have. And that's because we built real businesses. We gave people back their money. So for them, it's a no-brainer for them to give it back to us because, I mean, why would you risk it? And that's the kind of relationship that founders are really built with. So I don't think governance, I don't have any advice to give you on governance except to build a real business.
You've actually given us a lot of advice. You've actually given us a lot of advice. And I hope you guys are taking notes, right? I hope you're taking notes. So you've hinted on something which I want us to go straight into. Revenue.
Yeah.
Building a real business, money. We've seen founders who spend 2 years, 3 years trying to perfect the app, trying to perfect the technology. How can they start thinking about revenue from day one? How did you do it with Move, right? Pick some of the startups you've done.
Well, the ones that are obvious, right? So Andela, okay, fine. We train people, but trust me, from day one, we're going on Upwork and getting jobs. Like we had people on our team that were doing jobs from day one. I don't know, I'm not used to this new age approach where you have a business and nothing is actually the bank account and you don't feel somehow. I don't know how to build business like that. Flutterwave, even before I came on board fully, money was already entering the bank account regular, right? It was just that by the time we did Uber, the bank account exploded and somebody needed to man the thing properly. Move. I'm so revenue obsessed that for Move, we started working on Move in 2019. We launched in 2020. But do you know what? We didn't have office. We didn't have anything until we closed the Uber contract. Like I refused to allow anybody spend any money until we closed the Uber contract. It was only after we closed the Uber contract that I now raised I now raised money. It was only after we closed the Uber contract that I now raised money. And that's where I work till today. Before the company is created, customer day. If I don't see customer, we'll just be ideating until we see the customer. Because a business without customers, right, is like, it's like a corpse without life. There's nothing there. It's just a beautiful artwork, incorporation documents, right? A foundation, because you are just spending money. There's nothing coming out. And you know, the thing about business is that the day you decide that you're actually building a business, costs start to run.
Yeah.
Right? You cannot tell FIRS that you're not going to pay them their money. You know, by the way, I hope people know that the day you incorporate your business, you start paying. Oh, they don't know. Oh, they don't know. I see. Okay. You will pay 5K every month. Abi?
Yes.
Am I lawyers? Am I?
Yes.
Eh? Oh, I'm so surprised. In Abuja. Okay.
The startup act.
Oh, he removes it.
Yeah, the startup act.
Okay, yeah, they've given you people. So now they remove the 5K every month that you're supposed to pay. It's all good. But still, it doesn't change anything, though.
Yeah.
Because you will collect salary. Right? If you rent office space, God help you. You know that rent is for 2 years. And the clock starts. The landlord will not hear, I didn't see customer until 3rd month. It doesn't care. So when you're building a business, start with revenue. I actually think you shouldn't. You can ideate. Ideating is free. You can explore, but if you don't have a customer that is actually going to buy your service, don't start. Just leave it.
Like they should not even start coding any app.
No. Why? What are you coding for? I don't know. I mean, what are you coding for now? Is it an imaginary customer? There's no point that it's when you find customer, you don't start coding now because customer is there to pay for it and you are going to use his feedback to build, right? So I don't think, like, a lot of startups I find build products for an imaginary customer, right? They have this idea that there's some guy, he has this problem, he needs to order food, and that's why I built my app. Chop now is gonna go out. But
there's no chop now.
There's no chop now. I made sure. But the truth of the matter is that the only reason you're going to win when it comes to startups is because you know something about the customer everybody else forgot or ignored. Do you understand what I'm saying? So your job before you start a business as informally is to actually find out something about the customer that everybody else forgot or ignored. For example, when we were building Flutterwave, the one thing we realized, we were experimenting a lot on the site, but the one thing we realized that people forgot about the customer was that everybody was very focused on you, who was making the payment. So that time they had pay attitudes, this, that, and then they would force the merchants to carry like 5 different payment methods on their till. And that was how we started. That's how we started Flutterwave, right? Helping, first of all, pay with capture customers. Because at that time, you could only pay on pay with capture with an Access Bank account. So we're the ones that said, okay, look, the back end of pay with capture, we're going to change it so that I can accept any bank's card. So that it's not a consumer-to-consumer payment. It actually, if your customer is a UBA, Visa, if your customer is a EcoBank, MasterCard, it doesn't matter. Yeah. They can pay. And that was how we actually started. And then we built until, we started collecting other forms of payments. We started collecting payments in Kenya. That was it. So we understood something that the market ignored about the customer, which is that the person that is paying is not as important as the person that is collecting money. Because the person that is collecting money that knows how he wants his money. So you need to find that customer insight that everybody has either forgotten or ignored about the customer.
I only see one or two people writing down things. I hope everybody is paying attention. So, second to the last question from some of the questions that have been raised, right, is we all saw the news, Okra, shut down, infrastructure, everybody was talking. Anyway, everybody had different opinions, right? But one thing was very clear is that they had to do a lot of things that if they were in a different country, they wouldn't have done, like that infrastructure baseline, right?
I don't agree with that though, but
okay, no, maybe you should share your thoughts about that.
Well,
Okra's shut down.
Every time somebody fails, like I said, right, failure is the default outcome of a startup, right? So actually, I find it very annoying that when a startup fails, see, nobody ever wants to admit that they just weren't good enough. I'm not saying it's not a diss or anything. You may be going against a market you're not good enough to win. Do you understand what I'm saying? So in this market, people were like, oh, it was macros, it's government. If you were good enough, you could have done it. But you just weren't good enough. Mono is in the same market as Okra. Mono is doing well. How? It's just what it is. Because I think when startups enter the market, they enter with this mentality that they are owed success. And it's like, guy, and I always tell my startups, I said, Oga, countdown to day zero starts the day you start. Like the day that you have to shut down. That is the most likely outcome. We will just be counting with you. Will it take 3 months, 6 months, 2 years? I don't know if you watched Hunger Games.
Yes.
You understand? At the end of the day, what is supposed to happen?
Everybody's supposed to die.
Everybody's supposed to die. That's startups for you. You're actually supposed to die. It's true. You're supposed to die. It's just that, some people might hold out a little longer than the others. That's just what it is. So I think with the Okra thing, they were talking about infrastructure. No, I mean, look, you're in the environment you decided to build a startup in. That's just the fact. When we started at Flutterwave, we also didn't have infrastructure. There were no licenses for PSSPs. Yeah. We had to go and talk to every bank. I remember one time, you know how I used to get banks' attention? When we got a little bit of funding, I would conserve it very well. When we came back, we went to Y Combinator because we realized that the amount of money we needed to break the markets, do you understand? We would need to bring it from outside. That time, I remember one time I wanted to get a meeting with GT Bank, an ED person at GT Bank. You know what I did? I opened an account. I funded in 1 billion. I waited for the account officer to call me and I told him, in 48 hours, I will remove my money if I don't get a meeting. We were that gangster. That was what it took. And guess what? I got that meeting. So you do what it takes. And sometimes you may just not have it in you to do what it takes. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because you raised 13 million. It's not that failure is not assured. Failure is still there waiting by the door for you. It doesn't matter how much money you raise. If you're not willing to do what it takes, the money will go away. It's just what it is. So I think we need to stop this whole buck passing of failure. Like, you can learn lessons from failure. You can say, hey, look, at the time I did this business, I didn't have what it took to do this business. And that's why the business failed. But I think until we get to that point of vulnerability and sharing, we're going to keep creating all these fake issues. Because it's not as though eventually should be open banking got passed. So it was possible now. Do you understand what I'm saying? It just happened on somebody else's timeline. Do you get what I'm saying? They are not the only one in the market. Other people figured out what they were going to do and how to adapt their product to meet the market, where the market was. So it's not impossible. So sometimes just admit, look, I didn't have it in me.
Wow.
It's harsh.
Okay, so final question. You mentioned macros, right? Spending capacity, people say the amount that is available to spend in a market like ours, it's not as much. Africa doesn't have, one person, $1. Do you get all those kind of conversations?
Then don't come to Africa. Go and build. You see, when people tell me that thing, I get very annoyed. But I'm like, okay, fine. We are poor. go and meet the rich people. Stop disturbing us.
Okay, so the reason I'm bringing that up is because I've noticed some of the trend with your own startup. There's a lot of inflow from outside, and there's a lot of expansion to like other countries, right? So
Yeah.
is that like a strategy for startups to think about how do they balance this macro issue to build a surviving and sustainable startup?
The way to think about it is that when you build a startup, right? You build a startup to answer a problem. And there's what the market will pay for your problem. It's not a function of how good your solution is. It's just life. Let me give you a practical example. When you go to the US, you buy burger. Do you spend anything less than $10 in McDonald's? Right? You spend maybe $10, right? Even if there's no more, I think they've taken off that dollar meal, so you can't even do that anymore. So you spend $10, right? $10 is how much in Naira?
16K now, Abby.
16K. Abby? It's 16K now. If you do I need to finish my sentence? Do you understand what I'm saying? So we now say that McDonald's cannot work in Nigeria. It can work, but you will just not do it at 16K. That's all. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the macros of a market are the reality of that market. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you moved your business somewhere else, there will be newer or other realities for you to face. Your job is to look at the market and say, okay, I think I would rather serve the market of people who, for them, they may not pay 16K, but if I charge them 8K, they won't complain because they are earning dollars. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like what food court has done, right? Or maybe, you know what? I'm just going to focus on who can pay 1.5 because all this story is story. Let me just look for who can pay 1.5 and sell myself, and move on. Which is the strategy of Chicken Republic. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's you that will determine based on the macros. Because guess what? Whether food is 16K or food is 1.5, people must what? They must eat. So if they are not eating your food, they are eating what?
There's somebody else's food.
That's it.
So you think about like the cost of providing that service.
Yeah. So for me, what I try to do, I do something we call market translation. So I can provide a service in a particular market at a low cost. But if I look at that service and I realize that, I have a lot of fixed costs in this service. I don't have a lot of variable costs. I just figured that if I transplant this model somewhere else where they pay more, it actually gives me more margin. That's all I'm doing. It's not like as if I've changed the business or something. And I will be a fool to be a businessman and not chase that margin.
Yeah.
I'm not building for ego, I'm looking for money.
So how did you do that with Move? Like what was that?
No, it's very simple, right? In Nigeria, the average person at that time, a 5K trip was a lot.
Yeah.
Do you get? Now, they can charge you 10K. So in Lagos, you see the kind of charges they charge. I'm just looking. So it's what it is. But like at that time, but I was looking at it and I remember one time when a cab, we're going to an investor meeting in London. And I just started asking the driver questions. And I realized three things. Number one, the drivers over there had the same problem of not being able to access capital that we did here. Because they usually don't have bank records, they can't get credit. So they need the cars. Two, by the time you did the math, the fares adequately compensate for the driver's time. So you're not really losing much. But guess what? The margin was the same. The margin was the same. So all I needed to do was just bring the technology to London. I didn't have to do much because driver is driver, Uber is Uber, the car is the car. They have mechanic, they have petrol station, they have
Just build
nothing. So I just built the same technology. And by the way, this technology, we built it in Lagos. The monitoring, we are doing it in Lagos. Do you understand? So there's nothing that has really changed from a dispatch perspective. So, and for me, I've also learned that we need to think default global. A lot of people believe the world begins and ends where their startup is. But if you want to really build great world-class businesses, you have to be thinking global from day one, which is where else you want to perfect it in Lagos or in Abuja because you know people that will try your service here. But you want to be thinking to yourself, where else can this work? So that you can then expand it. After all, you're already a Delaware company. You can't change, you understand? You're already there. You might as well just do the business.
Thank you so much. Please put hands together for Iyin. On behalf of the founders in Abuja, I want to say a big, big thank you for taking out time because you're a very busy person. There's no doubt. I mean, how many companies, how many boards? Thank you so much for taking out time to be with us. And the good thing is that this session is recorded. Please, can we clap? So this session is recorded and it's powered by Ventures Valley. So please go to Ventures Valley on YouTube and subscribe and put on the notification button so that you can, be reminded when this particular video is up. And at every Founders Friday, whenever we have, we invite a founder, say the founder of ByPower, the founder of TerraHaptics, founders from Abuja, we try and record it so that you guys can go back and watch and be inspired and also take some lessons from it. And with that, we've come to the end of our session with Iyin. Please put that together for Iyin. Thank you so much.